Welcome again for Newsbriefing. Azovstal, steel plant Mariupol, Ukraine, is one of the symbols of the brutality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia continues stealing steel. Russia to hand over 152 Ukraine soldiers' bodies found in Azovstal plant. Russian military said it has found the bodies of 152 Ukrainian. The Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol has become one of the symbols of the brutality of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Soldiers held out for weeks in the warren of tunnels, warehouses and cooling blast furnaces as they and hundreds of civilians sheltering with them were encircled and eventually forced to surrender. The site produced 40% of Ukraine's entire steel output and was the key asset of the country's biggest pre-war employer, Metinvest. Now its owner has an important role to play in the parallel battle to sustain the economy via its other plants outside occupied territory, according to its chief executive, Yuriy Ryzhenkov. The war effort is not only what you supply to the army, but also how the economy functions, the Metinvest boss says, speaking via video link from a company office in Lviv in the west of Ukraine. So the better the economy functions, the better the country can fight a war. In our view, in my personal view, the people who are now at our steel mills are just as important to the victory of Ukraine as the soldiers on the front line. Ryzhenkov was in the capital, Kyiv, when he first heard Russian weaponry signaling the start of the invasion, and was stunned that Vladimir Putin's regime would launch open warfare. The company has since adjusted to operating in a war zone, but at least 153 Metinvest employees have died in the fighting. Beyond keeping money flowing through the economy, the Metals and Mining Group is playing a direct role in the war effort, delivering steel for 1,500 bulletproof vests a week to Ukraine's armed forces, and importing military equipment such as drones, night vision headsets and helmets. It is a remarkable shift for a company whose main shareholder, Ukraine's richest man, Rinat Akhmedov, was as recently as November cited by the president, Volodymyr Zelensky, as a target to be recruited to back a possible coup attempt. Zelensky said Akhmedov was not involved in the plot, and the oligarch said claims of moves to draw him in were an absolute lie. Akhmedov, who has links to the UK including past property investments in London, has remained hugely powerful under successive Ukraine administrations, both pro and anti-Moscow, and has swung behind the current government, saying his allegiance is only to Ukraine and that Russian soldiers should be punished, adding that he would dedicate his wealth to rebuilding the country. Ryzhenkov says he is in regular contact with Akhmedov as well as the Kyiv government, but insists the company is not involved with the political issues of its owner. We're working as a single team towards Ukrainian victory. Before the war, Azovstal employed 35,000 people, producing 9.5 tons of steel a year, two-thirds of Metinvest's output. That has all stopped. Given the scale of the human lives lost, it can be jarring to talk about quotidian business matters. Ryzhenkov raises an eyebrow when asked what Metinvest's output will be this year, but responds that it will be down at least 60% compared with 2021. Russia said Tuesday it will hand over the bodies of 152 Ukrainian soldiers found underneath the Azovstal steel plant in the port city of Mariupol, now under Moscow's control. Russia's defense ministry said its troops found 152 bodies of dead militants and servicemen of Ukraine's armed forces, that it claims were stored inside a cooling unit and that 4 mines were found underneath the bodies. The Russian side plans to hand over the bodies of Ukrainian soldiers and servicemen found on the territory of the Azovstal plant to representatives in Ukraine, the ministry added. After Moscow took control of Mariupol in late April, the city's remaining defenders were for weeks holed up in the underground tunnels beneath the giant Azovstal steelworks. Earlier in May, hundreds of Ukrainian soldiers surrendered to Moscow's troops at Azovstal, and Russia has indicated that they will be put on trial. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov in Moscow said, 152 bodies of fallen fighters and soldiers of the Ukrainian armed forces were stored in a container with no longer functioning refrigeration. He added that Russian authorities had yet to receive any request to transfer the dead from the Ukrainian leadership. Konashenkov said that mines had been discovered underneath the bodies, claiming that the Ukrainian side had probably intended to blow up the container in order to frame Russia for the deaths. Thanks for watching and see you in the next briefing. Kindly subscribe, like and leave comment below.